by the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. My name is Isaac Reichman. I'm the Director of Public Information here at BACP, and we are really excited to welcome the U.S. Small Business Administration. We have Bob Esquivel and Darrah Perryman here to present on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which just opened for applications yesterday. We're super excited about this program. We're very excited to have them here to talk in detail about how to apply. And they'll go over all the details in just 1 minute. I don't want to steal their thunder, but again, we're really excited to have them here. We think this is an incredible resource for bars, restaurants, and other businesses that have been really impacted by COVID to truly recover. And we're very excited to provide this presentation. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is going to be recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube page either by the end of the day or early tomorrow. So if you have anything you missed or any colleagues that were unable to join, we will be posting this shortly on the Chicago BACP YouTube page. Additionally, a big portion of today's webinar is we want to have times for question and answer. So please use the chat function if you have any questions. Again, please use the chat. That's the easiest way for us to see questions as they're coming through. And Darrah or Bob will hopefully be able to answer those questions because I certainly will not. That's why you guys are here. Without further ado, I will get started. And Bob, will I be passing it to you to get started?
Hi, everyone. Oh, Bob, I think you're on mute. Yeah, I was going to just introduce you all. Bob Esquivel is our Supervisory Lender Relations Specialist. Bob, I'll let you say hello.
Thank you for telling me I was on mute. I was, again, yes, Darrah pretty much is going to be doing the presentation, but I do want to thank you, Isaac, and for having us here. So good morning to all. Again, Darrah and I are with the Small Business Administration out of the Illinois District Office, and we will be doing the presentation and an overview of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So, we have a lot of programs. I think this is a very important program to go along with all our other COVID programs. So we'll give you the details as far as including the eligibility, funding, the amount, allowable use of funds, and more. So we'll have a nice little program going here today. Just one of the things I just want to highlight, this is not a bank participation program. So I think even our lenders find a lot of value, and you can also use your lenders. So although it's not a participating program, you can use your lenders to lean on to help you as far as a resource. So with that, Darrah, I'm going to pass it on over to you. And thank you for allowing me to say a few words.
Great. Thanks, Bob. That was a really great point. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Darrah Perryman, and I'm an outreach marketing specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Bob and I are out of the Illinois District Office. So we are just really excited to be able to present this information to you today. A lot of information to cover. Please, please, please put your questions in the chat. We are here as a resource if you do have questions about the program, and we'd be happy to answer those. So I'm going to just go ahead and get started, and yeah, let's just jump into it. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund, also known as RRF, that's the acronym you might see, just so you're aware. This was established with the American Rescue Plan Act, and that was passed and became law on March 11th, 2021. Essentially what that did is it gave the Small Business Administration $28.6 billion for the RRF program. So that's authorizing us to award that funding to this industry that has been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The unique thing also about this program is that the program will close once funding runs out. So unlike some of the other programs that we've pushed over the past few years, especially here at the SBA, where there was a date attached to a program ending, this program will end when funding runs out. So it's really important, if you're interested, do not delay. Go ahead and start your application because you want to make sure you're in the queue and you could potentially be eligible for this program. Another unique aspect of this program is you have a lot of flexibility as to when and how you can use your award amount. So the biggest thing is that you can use it for eligible expenses all the way up until March 11, 2023. You have a lot of time to use this fund, so that makes it very unique and a great opportunity again. Now, just to open, I really just want to reiterate this. You'll want to go to restaurants.sba.gov as soon as possible, at the very least, to register. So that's where you're going to set up your username, your password. You're also going to have to just set up a quick two-step authentication process. Very, very quick though. So that is the first thing you want to do. And then the application is open. So we do have an application portal training on our YouTube page that actually gives you a live demo of how to move through this RRF application. So I would highly recommend that, and I can also put that in the chat here as well when we're done, because that's a great resource if you want to use. So again, the application is open now. If you're not ready to apply or you want to do more research, at the very least, go ahead and register. So that way that's out of the way, and then apply as soon as possible, and we'll walk you through those steps. So who's eligible? The name kind of gives it away, Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So this is really, really intended for our restaurant industry. So our restaurants, our food trucks, caterers, brew pubs, breweries, wineries, inns, they are eligible. And if you see on the screen, a lot of the entities have an asterisk next to their name. Basically what that means is that those entities with an asterisk next to them, they have to show in the application that at least 33% of their on-site, of their 2019 gross receipts were on-site sales of food and beverage to the public. So that is something, again, entities with an asterisk next to them on this screen, they do have to show that. And again, on the application, when you're applying online, it will walk you through that. That is a step you will need to take. All right. Another thing I didn't mention, as we go back to who's eligible, you're not eligible for the program if you've permanently closed. That's different from if you've had to temporarily close due to the CDC guidelines. Let's say, for example, you had to just close down temporarily. You could still be eligible. We're just speaking about entities who have permanently closed. You are not, unfortunately, you're not eligible for the program if you have closed permanently. All right, your maximum loan amount is, it's not a loan. Your maximum award amount will be 10 million, but you are capped at 5 million per location. So just keep that in mind. There is a minimum award amount. So if you go through the calculation and you're coming up with only $1,000, let's say, then you would not be eligible for the program. You have to come up with a calculation that is above $1,000, or else the SBA is not going to go through and award you an amount less than that. So just keep that in mind. This program varies from other SBA programs because the program was written to allow the SBA to have the authority to forego some of these other requirements that are usually typically required for government grant programs. So for example, the entities would have to register in the System for Awards Management. It's also known as SAM.gov. That is not a requirement for this program. Entities also don't need to have a DUNS or CAGE identifier. Again, these are typical requirements for government funding grant programs that has been forgoed to allow and hopefully expedite folks in the application process. If you have an individual taxpayer identification number, also known as an ITIN, you can apply. You just want to make sure it's not expired and that taxes were paid within the last 3 years at least once to that. So you can apply with an I-10, just make sure it's not expired. Ineligible entities. So up here on this screen, these are the entities that cannot apply for funding for this program. State or local government operated businesses. If as of March 13, 2020, you own or operate more than 20 locations. So an important indication here, it doesn't matter if those locations business under the same or different names or in different industries. No matter what, if you own or operate more than 20 locations as of March 13, 2020, you would not be eligible to apply to the program. If you have a pending or have received a shuttered venue operators grant, so that is a program that was again launched with this if that was a program that was recently launched with the SBA. So that is for our live performing arts, our venues, our music promoters. that group, they are eligible to apply for another grant program. So it's just saying that you cannot receive both. You must choose. And for the most part, you would want to choose because there are two completely different programs. But just wanted to make you aware of that. Publicly traded companies are not eligible. Again, if you've permanently closed, not eligible, and nonprofits are also not eligible for the program. Who is eligible? So basically everything you see up here, so our C corporations, S corporations, partners, LLCs, sole proprietors, your independent contractors, and self-employed independent contractors and sole proprietors. You are eligible. Private businesses are also eligible. Franchises, you could be eligible. You will have to search in the application portal to find your franchise. If your franchise doesn't populate, then you're going to need to submit a franchise disclosure document to the SBA, in which case we would just verify whether the franchise could apply. Bankruptcy. So we do get this question a lot. So if you filed for bankruptcy, could you potentially still apply for this program? And so the answer is maybe. It depends on the type of bankruptcy. And most importantly, to be able to qualify with the bankruptcy, you must have an approved plan of reorganization. So the approved bankruptcies that could potentially apply, you are under a Chapter 11, 12, or 13. And again, most importantly, you have an approved plan of reorganization, then you could apply for the program. Now, if you did a Chapter 7 liquidation, or you did 11, 12, or 13 without an approved plan of reorganization, then you could not apply. So just keep that in mind. And again, permanently closed, you would not be eligible to apply. So we talked about the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and how you cannot have a Shuttered Venue Operators Grant and also this restaurant grant. But also another really important thing to note about how our two programs might work together is that the Paycheck Protection Program loan amount will be deducted from your Restaurant Revitalization Fund award. So if you applied for a first draw PPP loan and a second draw PPP loan, you'll just add those together. Both of them, again, would be deducted from your RRF award amount. Now, something really important to know here, you cannot receive a Paycheck Protection Program loan after you receive this Restaurant Revitalization Fund award amount. Now, the reason being is that if you were to receive this RRF award and then go out and apply for PPP, we wouldn't be able to deduct that PPP amount from your award. So you would have to, if you're considering both, two routes, you would maybe just want to choose one or the other, or apply for PPP, and then once that is approved and your funds have been dispersed, then come out and apply for Restaurant Revitalization Fund. But again, remember, the program closes once funding runs out, so that is a little bit of a risk you'd have to take, and hoping that the funding would still be open for you after you go through PPP. So just keep this in mind. Consult with your team if you're not sure which one or which program may be right for you. The biggest thing though, your PPP award loan amount will be deducted from this award, and if you do this award, then you cannot apply for PPP later. So just know that. You will have to attest in the application that this funding is pertinent to your business operation, that you need the funding to kind of keep things anticipated operations and also keep things running. It's a quick attestation that you will do in the application. So let's talk about what the funds can be used for. So such a variety of things. So your business expenses, so your payroll costs, utility payments, you can use it for your business maintenance expenses or supplier costs, or even your so like protective equipment or cleaning materials, for food and beverage expenses, also for operating expenses. Let's say you have marketing fees or insurance or license fees, legal fees, POS equipment, for your point of sale potentially equipment. The only thing the funding could not be used for would be expansion. So you could not use these funds to expand your business. However, you could use it to construct an outdoor dining space. That could be an eligible use of expenses. But again, other than that, no real expansion could be used with this money. The other thing you could do is use your RRF award amount to make payments on any business debt. The only caveat there is that you could not pay ahead. So let's say you have an EIDL loan with the SBA. You could not pay off that EIDL loan all in one sitting. What you want to do is make your monthly payment, your monthly minimum payment with your principal and interest. That's how you would go about that. And it can be any business debt incurred, that a payable account can be used for that. Just do not pay ahead. You just make your monthly payments. When do you have to use the fund? So really another huge unique aspect of this program is that you have such flexibility as far as what your covered period is. So your covered period again is time you have to use these funds. So you can pay any eligible expenses that had been incurred all the way back from February 15th, 2020, and then all the way up to March 11, 2023. So you have such flexibility on how you can use these funds and then when these funds could be, or how these funds can be used and then when you actually have to spend them. So a lot of flexibility here. Now, any funds not spent, let's say for whatever reason you're not able to spend it all, you would have to return that. Another example could be if your business closes, if your business closes and the day that your business closes is the last day of your covered period. So in that case, if you do have a chunk of money left over, you would have to return that. All right. So how will you certify that you've used these funds and what does that process look like? So that's what this is speaking to. At the very end, once you've used all of the funds, you will do a funds assessment. So that's going to be a detailed expenditure report and certification of how you use the funds and what time period. If for whatever reason you decide to stretch out the funds and use it all the way up till 2023, what you would then do is each year you're going to log into the portal and basically outline a self-reported data report, essentially detailing how you use the funds each year. So each year you'll have to do that all the way up until all the funds are used. There will be more guidelines on this later after you've gotten your award amount and everything. But this is just so you know, it's really important to obviously keep receipts and a detailed report of how you're using the funds because you will have to do that every year. And then at the very end, a detailed expenditure report once all the funds have been used. All right. Great, I'm seeing some questions come in, so please, if you have questions, keep them coming. I'm going to move to how to calculate your award amount. So the calculations essentially work based on when you were in operation. So if you were in operation all of 2019 or prior to 2019, then you're going to use your 2019 gross receipts, subtract that from 2020 gross receipts. And then don't forget, if you had any PPP loan amount, that would also be deducted. So that would be your award amount. At a minimum, you must show $1,000, and then at a maximum, it's $5 million per location, $10 million total. So that is how the first formula. If you were open again all of 2019, you're just going to calculate 2019 gross receipts, subtract that from 2020, and then any PPP award amount. Now we have a second calculation. This is for those who were only in operation part of 2019. So if you opened in the middle of 2019 or whatever that situation may have been, you weren't open for whatever reason all of 2019, but only a portion. Then you're just going to calculate your average 2019 monthly gross receipts times 12, and then subtract that from 2020 gross receipts. And then again, any PPP award amount must be deducted. All right, and then the third one, and I think I saw someone who said that they opened their newer business in the chat. So the third one would be for newer businesses. So if you began operations on or between January 1st, 2020 and March 10, 2021. And it's also open to applicants who have not yet opened. For whatever reason, you haven't opened, but you have incurred eligible expenses as of March 11, 2021, that's when this program or this funding was passed. So that is, again, for those of you who maybe aren't open or, again, are newer businesses. So for what this calculation would require, total amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15, 2020 and March 11, 2021, minus 2020 and 2021 gross receipts. Great. Seeing some questions in. We'll get to those in a moment. So that's the breakdown of the calculations. There is also a fourth calculation. That would be if you have maybe multiple businesses that are falling under different calculations, depending on your operation date. So if you have questions about that, we'd be happy to chat with you if you're in that situation. But that is essentially how you're going to calculate your award amount. Basically, it's based on when you were in operation. Remember, you must deduct your PPP award amount. At a minimum, you must show $1,000. At a maximum, $5 million per location, and $10 million topped. What can you exclude from your gross receipts? So you can exclude your PPP loan amount because that's going to be deducted at the end. You can exclude any SBA Section 1112 payments. Any EIDL loan that you received, that's our Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So if you received that loan, you do not have to include that in your gross receipts. And then if you received a targeted EIDL advance or any other state or local business grants, that does not have to be included in your gross receipts. How do you apply? Again, restaurants.sba.gov. That is where you need to go. Again, I would recommend going ahead and getting registered. That is just going to save you time. Then you'll have your username and password. Once you have that, you will log in and begin the application. So it's all online. There's also another unique way you could apply. So there's a point of sale vendor process that the SBA has begun partnering with some POS vendors. So if you are with Square and Toast, you can actually apply directly through those POS vendors. So they have their own team that could help with any questions you might have through that application, through their portal. Now, if you are with Clover and Aloha or NCR, what that could do is you could work with them to get a verified POS report, which will be really important when outlining documents later on, but you would still want to register in restaurants.sba.gov. So to clarify, if you have Square and Toast, you do not need to register or apply at restaurants.sba.gov. If you have Clover and Aloha, you will still apply through restaurants.sba.gov, but you can lean on your POS vendors for that supporting documentation that you will need throughout the application process. And we do get asked, what should you do? Which one should, let's say you are Square or Toast working with them. I would say applying through the POS vendor does allow the process to be a bit more streamlined. So if you do have that opportunity, go ahead with that route. If you don't, you can still just apply through restaurants.sba.gov. So that is another option. And then finally, the last option to apply. You can actually apply over the phone. So for whatever reason you don't have access to a computer and you can't work through this online, there is a customer service center line we've provided. You will do it over the phone, but again, remember, this program will close once funding runs out. So if you do it over the phone, we then have to send you that application. You will then have to sign it and then get it back to us. So it could be a little bit longer, but if you really cannot get to a computer, we will support that and help you get through that process. But again, just get started as soon as possible to get through that before the program closes. All right, so what documents do you need? This is a big part of the application. We're gonna just go ahead and break it down based on the calculations. So for calculation 1 and 2, remember that is if you were either open all of 2019 or part of 2019. You're open all of 2019, then you use calculation 1. You're open part of 2019, you use calculation 2. So here's what you'll need. The application form, so that's again online, you'll do that online. It's a very innovative platform. Again, there is a training on that. So you'll do that online. A part of the application is your 4506T. That's a verification of your taxes. It's a digital document. Again, you will do online in the application. The third thing you'll need is verification of your 2019 gross receipts. So we need to verify that. So a couple ways to do that. The preferred way is your federal tax return, especially for 2019. Again, if you're open all of 2019, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. By now, you should have your 2019 tax return. The other thing we're going to need is 3 months of bank statements. Now, this is really important so that the SBA can verify the bank account that we are going to deposit the funds into. We need to verify that it is a real account, as your account. So it's going to be the 3 most recent bank statements. So if you're applying now, it'll be the most 3 bank statements that you have. The last thing we'll need, especially, this is again, remember, calculation 1 and 2, your 2020 gross receipts. How can you verify that? Couple ways. Your tax returns are preferred just because that is the most streamlined way that we can verify those gross receipts. However, we know many people do not have their 2020 tax returns yet. So if you do not have them, the second thing you could show is your point of sale report. Again, this is for your 2020 gross receipts, how we can verify that. Now, if you don't have a point of sale report, the final thing you could do to verify that could be an externally or internally prepared financial statement. So that could be an income statement, a profit and loss statement. You know, try and get that dated, signed, and certified, just so we have that. Again, that is kind of like the last option. We really prefer either a tax return or point of sale report, but if those aren't available, an internally or externally prepared financial statement will work. So that's for calculation 1 and 2. Calculation 3. So it's going to require a little bit more because remember, calculation 3 are for the newer businesses and maybe those that haven't yet opened. So for this one, the same kind of couple things, the application form, your tax verification, again, that's digitally online, 3 months of bank statements, and then you're going to need 2020 and 2021 gross receipts. So for 2020, if you have your tax return, great. If not, the same type of methods. Point of sale report is the best. And if you don't have that, again, an externally or internally prepared financial statement. Now, how are you going to show your eligible expenses? What we prefer is a CPA comfort letter. So that is just to give us the verification that those expenses were in fact incurred and it is correct and verified by, again, a CPA. A second thing that you'll want to include are all the documents with that CPA comfort letter. So payroll documents, if you had any business debt, any documentation of those eligible expenses that were incurred. Now, if you cannot get that, if you can't get a comfort letter and you can't get that expense report with all of the eligible expenses you've incurred, another thing you could again provide is an externally or internally prepared financial statement. And then again, with all of those documents, payroll documents, basically all the documents that outlining your incurred expenses. So that is the lowdown of the documentation. Finally, one last thing. For those of you that have to prove that at least 33% of your 2019 gross receipts were from on-site sales of food and beverage to the public, you do have to show that documentation, evidencing that. And then if you're an inn, for example, you would just have to supply specific documentation, again, showing that you meet at least that threshold. So that is kind of the final step as far as documentation goes. Again, we provided the customer service center, so they're really good about letting folks know if there's going to be a long wait. They'll let you know, and they could even call you back, so you don't have to sit on the phone if you do have a question. So that is the hotline. Another thing that is available, we do have assistance in multiple languages. Also, all of our forms are in multiple languages. As we go to the website here, you'll see all of the forms are offered in various languages to help you. You can also find your local district office. We hear from the Illinois district office. If you're in Illinois, we can also connect you with resources and help you get some of your questions answered. I'm sorry. Best practices: provide complete documentation. Again, this program will close when funding runs out, so really try and make sure you have completed all your documents to the best of your ability. They're thorough, they're complete. If you miss something, it's just going to delay the process, and you really don't want that. Leverage your resources. So as we mentioned, you may need some assistance from your accountant to get everything together, or your POS vendor if you need to get some reports from them. So leverage your resources in your network to get your application as prepared as possible. Corrections. Let's say for whatever reason you do make a mistake on the application, you will have to call the customer service hotline. Again, that number is listed. It's 1-844-279-8898. So you just want to make sure you have that handy just in case. Hopefully, though, you do your due diligence and there aren't any mistakes. But if you do make a mistake, there is a hotline for you to make corrections. And then finally, again, I know I've harped on this, but just want to make sure you're aware and you're making an educated decision. Applicants who still want to apply for PPP, you have to either make a choice between PPP and RRF, or apply for PPP, get approved, get those funds dispersed into your account, and then apply for RRF. If you apply for RRF and then decide later on you want to apply for PPP, unfortunately, you would not be able to. So just make sure you're aware of those program rules so you are making the best decision for yourself. All right, so when can I apply? So as I said, the application is open now. We went live on Monday, so we are accepting applications now. We did have a pilot period just to troubleshoot any application portal issues. So that period has passed. Now, I want to just clarify the priority period and then what happens after day 22. Essentially, the priority period is days 1 through 21. So starting day 1, all eligible entities who are interested and qualify for this program should and can apply. However, for the first 21 days, the SBA will only process and fund applications from priority group applicants. Now, I'll touch on what the priority group is in just a moment, but I just want to clarify that I would still encourage anyone and everyone who is eligible for the program, go ahead and apply. All that this means is that the priority period, only applications from the priority group will be funded and processed for the first 21 days. Now, on day 22, SBA will begin processing all applications in the order in which they were processed. So that's why it's important, no matter what, even if you're not in the priority group right now, to just go ahead and apply. If you're in the queue on day 22, SBA will then begin processing all applications. So let's get into what the priority group is and who qualifies for being in the priority group, I should say. So the priority group is going to be a small business concern that is at least 51% owned, and the management and daily operations of the applicant are controlled by one or more of the following individuals. So women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. So this group will self-certify on the application that they meet this requirement. And then again, they are among the priority group. An example, so let's say you have an applicant that has 5 owners. They each own 20% of the applicant, of the business. 2 owners are veterans. 1 is a socially and economically disadvantaged individual, and I'll define that in just a moment. And then, and that's their situation. 2 are veterans, 1 is socially and economically disadvantaged. Because together they add up to more than 51% being controlled and operated by the priority group, they are among the priority group. Now, what is a socially and economically disadvantaged individual? So this is defined here. So that is socially disadvantaged individual is someone who has been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias because of their identity as a member of this group without regard to their individual qualities. So these members are presumed to be socially disadvantaged. So that includes Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, including Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiians, Asian Pacific Americans, or subcontinent Asian Americans. So among this group, again, socially disadvantaged individuals. In addition, economically disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same business area who are not socially disadvantaged. So those are the definitions. Again, you will self-certify. You will need to show that definition if your application does get audited later on. You will need to show that you do meet this criteria, but it is a self-certification process. Again, first 21 days, the priority group will be funded and processed. On day 22, the SBA will begin processing applications in the order in which they have been processed. So that is the lowdown on that. And just to note here, any attempt to try to reorganize your business, to try and fit in the priority group would result in an immediate automatic disqualification for the program. All right, so we've gone to most of it. I will just say, in addition to all of the other measures to ensure equitable access, there is also a set aside. So there's $5 billion set aside for applicants with gross receipts of 2019 of less than 500,000. And there's also a set aside for applicants with 2019 gross receipts from 500,000 to 1.5 million. And then there's a set aside of 500 million for 2019 gross receipts of less than 50,000. So this is just set asides, again, to help smaller businesses and those that have been impacted by the pandemic and also had lower gross receipts in 2019. This does not mean if you don't fit in this bracket that you cannot apply. This is, again, just set aside. Anyone who meets the program criteria can apply. So that is what we have. And now I just want to spend some time on some questions and work through those. So Bob, did you see any questions offhand that we want to jump to first?
Yeah, actually, I would like to go back to the first question if I can, only because I made a big boo-boo there, a big error. And see if I can get up to that first one. Is basically, when do you start? Can you, if the business is started in January, am I eligible? And I put on there it has to be started prior to January 1st. That is not correct. The correct answer is in between January 1st of 2019 and March 11th, 2020. So it's a big gap there that as far as if you can be eligible to as far as be in operation. And the real as far as part of it too is what do you mean by an operation? It's usually when you're receiving cash. So that's the other qualification there. But not always the case, as Darrah showed though, with as far as calculation 3. You can actually be in operation and actually not actually having cash yet, but you have expenses. So it's a different formula. It's turned around a little bit. Your expenses may come before your cash in that class as far as calculation. So that's one of them. And
yeah, thanks for that, Bob. That's a good question, because I know it does get confusing with some of the other programs that we've had. So for this program, it is unique that it allows flexibility for newer businesses. So you are in operation, you are incurring expenses, but maybe you haven't opened yet. You could still potentially be eligible. The biggest thing you'd want to look for is that when you do your calculation, you must come up with an award amount of at least $1,000. If you don't come up with an award amount of that, then unfortunately you wouldn't be eligible. But as far as when you are in operation, you're just going to look at one of the 3 or potentially 4 calculations. For this person, looks like it would use calculation 3 if you open January 2020.
Correct. And so here's the other thing is, so another question I should say, as far as am I eligible to apply? What can I apply for with expenses? Or the way I usually put it though too is just about almost any eligible business expenses are there, but there is the actual list of expenses. One thing that it's not usually eligible is construction expenses. There is one exception for construction, and that is basically for the expansion costs of, construction costs of outdoor seating. Otherwise, all other construction costs are not eligible. And when somebody asks if I'm eligible to apply, what I did was actually put a link to our website and also the program guide to talk about all the eligibility requirements in there. But most of it, as far as if you fall in the type of business that was listed and also what you use for eligible use of funds, you should be okay.
Yeah, great point. I'll go back to eligibility. The biggest thing you want to ask yourself, the first line on this slide, eligible entities are businesses that 1, are not permanently closed, and 2, are businesses where the public or patrons assemble for the primary purpose of being served food and drink. So you're not sure, because I know there are some gray areas, you're maybe not sure, ask yourself that question, look at this list. You're among this list, then you could potentially qualify and apply for the program.
And if you can hold that page, Darrah, the other question after that was as far as I'm thinking they're saying I am a personal chef / caterer for over 3 years. I just received my LLC last year. Okay, so if they've been in business for over 3 years, they should be eligible. And if you also notice on this list, caterers are eligible. So if you're a caterer, you're good to go. And even though you
Yep.
switch as far as your structure, it's actually based on your operation and not necessarily that you change your eligible structure. LLC is an eligible structure though too. So as a sole proprietor, you would have been okay.
Yep. Yep.
Let's see, a good one, another good one as far as would the priority group business have to be certified as a WBE or DBE? And the answer is no, you don't have to have any kind of pre-certification. Priority groups is pretty much going to be self-certified. So you'll be able to certify yourself as far as that you fit in one of those priority groups. And I think that's all I have on there. One of the things I just wanted to highlight though too is if you can go to as far as use of proceeds, Darrah.
Yes. Oops, there we go.
There we go. So I mentioned as far as the only construction cost that's eligible is construction of outdoor seating. But here's another important thing: business debt, payments on business mortgages and obligation. All of our other programs only really allow you to use the funds to pay on interest on those type of obligations, including as far as business debt service. Not here. This is different. This is a great benefit. You can make payments not only on interest, but also payments. The only caveat here or prohibition is you can't do any kind of prepayment. So no big as far as payments ahead of time, paying it off. So again, just on your monthly payments. Remember, you have a span of up to 2023 to make these eligible costs. So you can make monthly payments, not just one time, but monthly payments as they come due. Just wanted to highlight that as far as I think that's a great benefit for the business debt.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a great point. I thought I saw another one. If you have a SAMS.gov, CAGE, or DUNS, does that help? I would say no, that's not required. I wouldn't say that it really is. It does help. It doesn't impact the application process at all. Something else I wanted to say, because we've gotten this question a lot, is if I have an EIDL loan, can I use that same login for the restaurants.sba.gov portal? And the answer is no. This is its own portal. So I'll actually just take you guys there so we can just show you. So let me open up this window. And again, there is a detailed training out there, and I'll post that in the chat right now. So restaurants.sba.gov, that's where you want to go. That's where the application is. That's where you're going to get registered. So you'll want to go in, create a username and password, and that is how you'll get the process started. So to answer your question, having SAMS.gov, CAGE, and DUNS does not help. It doesn't impact this process. Thanks for that.
So there's another question regarding as far as we were in a food court and we were shut down since March 13th until May 1st, 2021. So I know we owe back rent. And so the question is, will we be able to back rent? Will that be an expense, I believe? So the answer is it's again, your period as far as what you can pay payments on, it actually goes back a little bit. So you can't actually go to as far as back expenses. As long as it's not prepayments, you're talking about as far as payments that were monthly payments, you can use as far as the funds to do back payments.
Yep, it's all the way from February 15th of 2020, I believe. Yep, is the date. So
that's correct.
Yeah, if you do have back rent, you can use that. You'll want to just obviously document that when you're using your funds, but yes, you can use that. Up on the screen, just so folks are aware, this is the application portal. So this is where you'll go, register to start your application, and then once you have that, this is where you'll go, your username and login. So this is what it looks like. I just wanted to show you all that because that is an important place to know and bookmark. All right, let's see. I see some more questions coming in. Sorry, just to verify, if a business is not in the first 21-day priority group, can they apply now to be in the queue for day 22? Yes, that's exactly right. You want, even if you're not in the priority group, you want to apply now, because on day 22, the SBA will then start processing and funding all applications. And again, you want to be in that queue. If you wait all the way until day 21, you're in the back of the line. So apply now, even if you're not in the priority group. Day 22, you'll be in the queue, and again, SBA will begin start processing applications. All right, let me read through this question. Hello, can you apply if you were a caterer in 2019 alone? You had a Schedule C? Yes. So off the bat, remember, independent contractors, sole proprietors, self-employed, you can apply. Okay, but you just had a Schedule C for that year, because then you started driving Lyft in 2020, and then the pandemic started. So I haven't been able to do my catering, any catering in 2020. Let me read through that. I would think, yeah, I would think the problem with this scenario is that, remember, to qualify, you can't be permanently closed. So it said you were a caterer in 2019, and then you switched over to 2020. Now you don't have 2020 gross receipts to show. So I would say probably not. I would say probably not for that. I don't know, Bob, do you have anything to add for that scenario?
No, you're correct, Darrah. The only thing is, as far as it cannot be permanently closed. So if, for instance, as far as you did the catering and you were still, as far as reopening for catering, it is a possibility that you'll be able to get some assistance.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, so remember, permanently closed is one of the things that would make you ineligible. So looks like you may have permanently closed, but if you were starting it up again, then yes, potentially you could use calculation 3 if you had incurred expenses related to catering. So depending on that situation. Okay.
We have some questions in chat, and there was some in Q&A, so I'm going back and forth.
I know. Keep them coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see one. So if my business didn't make any revenue or profits, do I still qualify for funds? So again, it depends on which calculation you're using, but at the end of the day, you must show at least an $1,000 award amount. So if you were open all of 2019, you'll take 2019 gross receipts, subtract that from 2020 gross receipts, subtract any PPP award amount. If you're coming up with an award of 0 at the end, then you're not eligible. If you're, if you're less than 1,000, you're not eligible. So really depends on this situation, on what your 2 gross receipts look like. If you were using a calculation 3, that's a different story, because you're adding up your incurred expenses subtracted from gross receipts. So I would say not necessarily. In order to answer the question, go through the calculation and see what your award amount comes out to.
That's correct, Darrah. The funding is not depending on as far as your profits. It's based on as far as the gross revenues.
Gross receipts, yep.
Gross receipts. If you receive a $10,000 grant, can you still apply? It depends on what grant you're talking about. If you're talking about as far as the shuttered venue, no, you cannot.
Yep. So, yep, that's right. The shuttered venue, you cannot. But if you're referring to the idle advance, then yes, you could still apply. That has no effect on this. But the only grant that interferes with this program is the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, and that just launched. So no, I don't know of any that have been funded yet. So that may not be your situation. But yeah, if you received the idle advance, you could still apply for this program. Even if you received another state or local grant, like the big program, I know they had one, or any other business grant, you could still apply, and that's not included in your gross receipts.
So the last question I see is, I invested into my business starting in 2019, which is a qualifier there. I had clients but never profited off the business. Can I still receive funding? It goes back to the same one that we replied to before. Again, it's not based on your profits. It's based on as far as your gross receipts.
Yep. So this person, you started in 2019. If you were open all of 2019, your calculation 1. If you are partially 2019, your calculation 2. You just have to calculate your average 2019 gross receipts amount, remember. And then you go through that calculator, make sure you come up with at least an $1,000 award amount, and you could apply.
Okay, I think that was the last in the Q&A, unless there's any more in the chat. I don't see
Yep,
anything else.
I see some
Oh, yes.
more.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, if I need a truck for my business or payments on a truck, is it covered by the program? What do you think about that one, Bob?
So if you need a truck for your business or payments on a truck, you already have the truck. You have the truck and you're making payments on it, that's eligible. It is covered by the program. That's the same thing as any kind as far as business debt. So business debt, that falls under there. If you need a truck for a business, the only, I'm not too sure, you might, I don't think if you're replacing a truck and it's maintenance expenses, I think we are stretching it there. I don't think you can use the proceeds to actually purchase a truck.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think if it was like a repair or something maybe, or again on a loan or any debt, business debt, you could again make that monthly payment, minimum payment, but that could be seen as maybe expansion if you were just going out to buy a new truck. So be careful of that, is what I would say.
How about rent for my business? Absolutely. That falls under the category as far as business operating expenses. So
Yep.
yes, definitely can, and to pay as far as use it for your rent payment.
Can a business owner who operates from a shared kitchen apply?
From a shared kitchen, the answer, we've actually had it, depending on the details on there, I would say it probably would be eligible, would be okay. So if you actually have the business itself, you have your entity, and you're just basically using the shared kitchen, it may be possible. So you have to depend on as far as where your actual location. You have to have a location. So that might be a determining factor though too. So,
Yeah.
So shared kitchens, I've heard, have been eligible depending on how the structure is.
Great. And then the last one, can you define what qualifies as an inn? So I believe when you go through the application, you're going to have to, one of the first questions is, what are you licensed or registered as? So that may be one qualifier. And also, do not forget, for inns, in order to qualify for the program, you must show at least from your 2019 gross receipts, at least 33% of the 2019 gross receipts were on-site sales of food and beverage to the public. So an inn does not automatically mean that you qualify. You have to take that extra step. And I would say to qualify as an inn, that would be, again, when you go through the application, what you are registered and licensed as. I don't know, Bob, if you have any other thoughts on that.
No, that question has been asked a few times. And I can tell you the inn is not a hotel, okay? So you're looking for a place basically that's serving, at least as Darrah mentioned, that 33% of that is going to be for food and services in that regards. So,
Yep.
And on that premises.
Great. I see some more in the Q&A. So if I received the COVID-19 economic injury disaster loan, EIDL, can I still apply? Yes, you can. It doesn't impact this program at all because EIDL is a loan. So you can even use this loan, this grant proceeds to make payments on your EIDL. You just cannot use it to pay off your EIDL or pay ahead. You just could use it to make the monthly payments. So yes. Is this program considered a grant, or will I eventually have to pay it back? So yes, this is a grant. This is considered a grant. The only way you would have to pay it back is if, one, you didn't use all of the proceeds. If you, for whatever reason, like if your business closed and you had a huge chunk left and you didn't use it, you would have to return it. Or two, if you, when you do each year, remember each year you have to go in and certify how you're spending the funds. If you're not using the funds on eligible expenses, so if you are expanding, if you are those types of things, then you would have to pay it back. But otherwise, this is just an award that is given to those who qualify. You do not have to worry about paying it back. Just follow the program rules. Can you use the funding to relocate your business? That one. Let me think about that one. I thought I had a. Do you have any thoughts on that offhand, Bob?
No, as far as relocating your business, or you got these proceeds up there still?
Yeah.
I would have to say no. I don't think that's falls under any of the as far as eligible business expenses.
Yeah, I was looking in our knowledge base, and I'll just show everyone that because it's a great resource, and I didn't find anything, so I think that Bob is correct. That probably wouldn't be an allowable use. So this is a good resource. If you have questions about this program, you're going to go to sba.gov/restaurants. And there's a knowledge center here where you can actually search questions and find the answers to them. So I want to show folks that great resource if you want to apply for this program and learn more. So you'll just scroll down. It's under supplementary documents, or I'm sorry, get help with your application right here. It's the RRF knowledge base support documentation. So if you open that up, it's a wonderful resource. You can really find anything here. So you can just search. So for example, if you didn't know about a comfort letter, you put that in and hit search. And you will see all entities related to that. So what is a CPA comfort letter? You just click that and it'll give you your answer. So I would leave you guys with that. If you have more follow-up questions, this is a wonderful place to go to see that.
I have a question here. If I operate from home and it's fully paid, but I have property tax, is it coverable even partially? And the answer is no. The only thing as far as expenses for like mortgage, and actually even taxes is not covered, but mortgage or other business debt, it has to be a business as far as location. It has to be a business property to be eligible. So
yes.
From your home, working from home, none of those expenses, mortgage expenses, interest expenses as far as principal or interest, and including as far as any kind of tax, as far as costs, are not eligible.
Okay. Great. Well, I know we're at our time. So I just really appreciate all of these are really great questions. I hope we were able to provide an answer to all of them. If for whatever reason you do have additional questions, again, this knowledge base is a great place to go. We'll put that in the chat right now. I think too, there'll be a follow-up email, and if there's anything we missed, I'll be happy to provide more support in that email. So I'm going to pass it back, Bob, if you have any last closing remarks, and I guess we'll let our speakers then after that, our host, close us out.
I want to thank you again for our host for inviting us and allowing us to participate and share this valuable information regarding this, to me, a very beneficial program for the restaurant industry. The only thing I do want to mention is that you apply as soon as possible. Again, you do not have to fit in that priority group. Apply today and apply as soon as possible. No waiting on this program. We'll just put it that way. If you wait too long, who knows what will happen, right? Just be careful submitting your applications again. When you do put your application, make sure everything is correct. There is a possibility that you can call as far as the hotline to make corrections if needed, but it always slows down the process. My understanding is there isn't a correction that has to be done. It'll put you back to as far as the front of the back of the line, excuse me. I wish it was the front of the line, but back to the back of the line. Again, thank you. And leave it up to the rest for the host or Darrah to close out.
Well, thank you both for presenting. This has been such great information. And again, this will be posted at www.youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. Thank you, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.